Hello, and do we have the vibes for Venus, for Oshun, Ore, Yay, Yay, Oshun today? We are getting into it. I am so glad that you have joined us because we are about ready to explore the captivating energies of Venus retrograde in Leo and the start of Leo season. Yay! For those of you that don't know, I am a Leo sun born in August. So I'm very excited for Leo season. Always am. And we are also going to be using the tarot today to discover how these two events, and really there's five. When I started sitting down, I'm like, okay, there's five things that we need to talk about today. How those are going to color our experiences in the days ahead. You have joined Twitchy Tuesdays, where we are thriving live once per week, discussing all the astrology, pulling all the tarot. And don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, stay tuned for more astrology updates and insights. So this is how we're going to roll this week. We'll clear space at the end, just like we've been doing this month. Let me turn that down a little bit. So we'll clear space at the end. What we're going to do is there are a lot of conversations happening this week. I am going to go through the week day by day and just get them out, but I'm not going to cover the details of each of these conversations because there are five really prominent things this week that we need to be discussing, which is the Saturn Mars opposition that's going to occur. And really, quite frankly, we've been leading up to for a while now. The fire sign retrogrades, which is going to be Venus and Chiron, but we'll talk more about fire sign retrogrades. And then Venus retrograde in the sun in Leo. So we're going to cover all of that in that's going to be our detail and depth today for Twitchy Tuesday. So we're just going to quickly go through what the astrology looks like from a direct aspect standpoint. And then we're going to get into all of those. And there's so much. I've got Sabian symbols. I've got 3 decks. We've got like 2 oracle cards, both extreme feminine energy, bringing that Venus love in. We're going to get all to it. So, astrology of the week, the 18th and the 19th, today, tomorrow, no direct aspects. We're still kind of, I don't know about y'all, I'm still vibing off that moon. I'm still vibing off the moon. This weekend and leading up to this moon was incredibly, I did nothing. That was my word for the weekend. Nothing. I did nothing. I did there were things that got done, but really it was just like nothing. There was no agenda. There was no movement. There was no movement like where this is what I have to accomplish today. It was so fluid and so wonderful. So we've got 2 more days kind of owning into this energy, feeling out the new energies as we get to this North Node square Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, which will happen this week. We'll talk about that more later on. So, and in another Twitchy Tuesday, because that's going to be very present. There's presence there with those bendings. So 720 is where everything begins. We have Sun in Cancer, trine Neptune in retrograde in Pisces at 27 degrees, 35 minutes. Mars in Virgo then opposes Saturn retrograde in Pisces at 6 degrees, 21 minutes. That is something we are going to talk about today. On 721, the Sun in Cancer. Sun in Cancer is busy, y'all. It's busy trying to finalize its time in Cancer. Sun in Cancer will oppose Pluto retrograde in Capricorn, 29 degrees, 8 minutes. And then on 722, the Sun in Cancer will square the North Node, just getting into Aries as of Monday as well, 29 degrees, 11 minutes. Then the North Node in Aries squares, which the South Node does as well. 9 of Cups just flew out. Let me put it this way. There we go. Love that 9 of Cups energy. Again, this Sun in Cancer. The Sun in Cancer is doing things to complete, finish, finalize out the 9. We're just not there yet. We won't get there until the 22nd, until later in the 22nd, when the sun finally ingresses. So there's a couple more there's a couple more goodies. There's a couple more goodies with the sun in Cancer. So 22nd, again, we've got that north node in Aries, south node squaring Pluto retrograde Capricorn, 29 degrees, 6 minutes. The 22nd is when the sun goes into Leo and Venus retrograde in Leo happens. Then on the 23rd, Mercury in Leo squares Uranus in Taurus, 22 degrees, 32 minutes, and Chiron stations retrograde in Aries. So there's our fire aspects there. And then on the 24th, we get a very brief moment to integrate before we move on then into the next week, into the next Twitchy Tuesday. So that is your astrology overview from all of the aspects that are occurring this week. Let's get into these top 5 areas. And I do want to talk more about the nodes squaring Pluto. But how I think I'm going to do that is I think I'm going to do that over on Twitter. So if you follow me on Twitter, if you don't, you obviously should. I am hysterical over there, FYI. But if you don't follow me on Twitter, you can always find that in the About Me section, find all of my different social media accounts. I'll post some things, maybe even do a little video. Twitter is phenomenal. Thank you, Elon, for, leading that charge, making Twitter an amazing, growing and budding app for creators. And yeah, I'll put it out there. That's where I'll be talking about the North Node in Aries square Pluto retrograde Capricorn. So you can, and the South Node, you can find out more there. The other thing that you want to make sure of, if you're not following already, like I've already said, want to be following the program, because on Sunday, we have a special Twitchy Tuesdays. It is our next Sabbath happening August 1st. So you'll want to make sure to check that out. So let's go to Saturn and Mars opposition. I'm going to get to the full card screen so you can see kind of what we are working with today. We have the Sabian symbols. This we are pulling out for Venus retrograde. You can see I've got 2 tabs. I'm ready for this Venus retrograde. Last Venus retrograde in Capricorn, that was a move. That was a move. There was some great things that happened in that Venus retrograde in Capricorn. So I digress. I said we were going to go Saturn-Mars opposition. That is where I need to stay. Okay, Saturn-Mars opposition. Again, that opposition will happen on 7/20. Saturn is retrograde during this opposition, and it's going to happen at 6 degrees, 21 minutes. We have been working to this. You may have been feeling this pressure build, especially if you have planets or points in your natal chart, specifically Mars and Saturn in your natal chart, in that degree realm of Pisces and Virgo, 6 degrees, 21, give it 2 or 3 degrees either way for the orb. You may have already started seeing glimmers of this exact opposition that is coming up on the 20th. Ever since Mars ingressed into Virgo, which happened a couple weeks ago, what is time? Beginning of the month. And when Mars ingressed into Virgo, it started its immediate build to this. And I want to start off with just really grounding us in with what these opposing forces, because it's the opposition, it's this movement, what these opposing forces really mean. So Mars is impulsive, it's hot, it's fast. It can create, it takes action, it alchemizes, it does. There's a flow and a movement to Mars. And for those of you that are new to astrology, new to Mars, and kind of got into it when Mars was in its Gemini range and spent abundance of time there over the last, from 2022 into 2023, you may not have felt this alchemy that Mars truly is, this magician that Mars truly is, that impulsiveness, that heat, that fastness, because Mars was truly working on alchemizing himself, first of all, over the last couple of months, alchemizing who he is, grounding into his magic, but balancing his magician with his warrior, not allowing one to take more where, he just got lost in that mutable air of Gemini and just wooed out, but really bringing that into how can I take the best parts of me and bring it forward? How can I create off of that? And then we have our lovely friend Saturn. Thank you so much for the follow. Appreciate you. We have our lovely, amazing friend Saturn. Saturn is control. Saturn is cold. Saturn is very slow. Saturn is pretty much all of the opposites from Mars. And let's see what two came out. So we have the Ace of Wands and the Six of Cups coming out for Saturn. So it's this, especially with Saturn and Pisces, like thinking about what Saturn rules. Saturn rules Capricorn, Saturn rules Aquarius. It's a lot about, me and Moni, look, Red Pill Astrology, we say this all the time. We love working with Saturn because Saturn is what gets you your Ace of Wands. Saturn loves his work. Saturn loves to control the work that comes out. Saturn loves for you to be in control of the things that you are doing, the things that you are creating, what you're giving out, the Six of Cups, what you're giving out into the world, what you're bringing forth into this universe, your community, what you're creating, etc. Saturn wants you to be controlled, to be methodical, to be slow, to be kind of, not in our feelings, but in the reality of the situation. Because once you get to the reality of the situation, once you begin to do the work that you need to be doing to be on your destiny path, Saturn rewards you. Saturn is your reward giver. Jupiter makes things bigger. I've heard a lot of astrologists get with Jupiter in a very reward sense, like this is where your blessings come from. There can be short-term blessings, sure, there can be this, but Jupiter only expands what's already present. Saturn is what gives you that true reward from the work that you are doing. That true reward, that gift from the universe, that aha moment of, oh my God, I'm so happy. For example, through the work I've done, I am so happy that I'm not, Maloney from 2010. I'm super happy. But it was through that work that I've done that now I get this gift of being who I am today. So that is Saturn and Mars. That's the opposing force that we're working with here. Then you have the Virgo and Pisces opposition, which that access point is also in an opposition right now where, and its access point in general is in this opposition of the struggle between the large picture, Pisces, the depth of reality, this depth of our humanness, this depth of the things that we are and who we are in this world and what worlds are beyond us and how we fit into everything. It's this large picture depth that is in opposition with the Virgo, which is about the pieces of reality, the little things. This is, if you wanted to look at it from the cards that are present, Pisces, the large picture, the depth is really this Ace of Wands. It's this, what's out there? What things are we doing? Where are we at? And then the Virgo area is a lot more about the Six of Cups, which is, these are the pieces, these six cups are the pieces of our reality. Virgo is not focused on that larger, it's still within that bottom half of the zodiac wheel, right? We haven't switched over into, this is still self-actualization. This is still understanding the self of you and what you are and who you're doing before you get into that higher realm. Turn that wheel, go up into the 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th house, and then begin to discover what is beyond you, what is beyond your base level understanding. And so here's where Virgo comes in, that gives you these pieces of your reality. It's the systematics of things. So here's where you've got these oppositions. Not only do you have the planets, but you've got the signs that they're in too. And what this really felt like and why I'm spending so much time on it, because this opposition is really pertinent to help us and where they're placed and everything, helping us make systematic changes or different habits, Virgo, right? Different habits, different routines during this slow burn of change. I know we talk on a weekly basis here. You've heard me every now and again dip into the future, and this is what I love about astrology is always it's always building blocks over and over and over again, up and up and up. And you, because of femirises, thank you for that. Because of the information and the tools that we have, we can project out into the future with astrology. And I can tell you the slow burn of change, it ain't talking about this year. It's not talking about next year. This is that slow burn of change, the systematic adjustments that are needed during this transit, to habits and routines, to the awareness, the awakening of what needs to change. That is for the next 15 years, the next 20 years, the next lifetime, right? We are, and I said this, I believe it was my 2022 astrology overview that you can still find out on YouTube. This was like year one of a 250-year journey, this age of Aquarius, this opening into new areas, new arenas of life. That's Saturn control for the long term. So what adjustments need to be made? That's what this opposition can show, is where those holes are and what you need to fill, what adjustments needed. It's an endurance check. Saturn's going to ask you. Saturn's like your coach, right? We talked about Mars and Virgo being the Olympian, and even more than that, but Saturn's the coach that checks you. Saturn's the coach, Knight of Cups coming out. Saturn's the coach that sits there and like literally goes, you don't have the endurance to finish this race. You're not doing the things necessary. You're not filling your cup in the way that you need to in order to go on the journey. If you want greatness, if you want X, fill in the X for yourself. Saturn in this conversation is the voice in the background that goes, are you ready? Are you the individual? Are you the knight that you need to be to achieve that goal? Or do you still have work to do? And still having work to do is great. That's totally fine. But there is that point. For example, I've heard it through like interviews and conversations, but gymnasts, high level Olympian gymnasts, they don't eat the way that they eat when they train for the Olympics, when they're about ready to go through competition all the time. They have a little bit of wiggle room during the off time, right? Just like with maybe any elite champion. But when it gets time to dial in, they dial in. That's what this is, the dial in. How do you persevere? Question to ask during this. How do you take this cup for the long run? How do you go on this campaign for the long run? Another phrase that came up for me during this was the relentless pursuit of greatness. This is the conversation at the table. How are you going to be relentless in your pursuit of greatness? Two of Wands came out. What information are you going to be gaining? What can you interpret during this time that gets you to your goalpost, that you can, like, look, this Two of Wands, he is sitting out there contemplating. How can I be relentless in my pursuit of greatness? And it's not about going fast. That's the thing with Saturn. That's what Saturn can really teach us is 9 of Pentacles. It's not about going fast. Taurus, fixed energy. This is a Taurus card, fixed energy. Leo, fixed energy, not about going fast. Not about going fast. This is about enjoying as you're going there. It's about actually getting there. It's about the the finalization, not the completion. We talked about nines before. This is about enjoying where you're at, understanding where you're at, not going fast to get to the next step, but knowing that you're going to get there. You're putting the things in place to actually achieve the things. It is truly knowing that manifestations, especially large ones, don't happen overnight. They take time. And it's focusing on long-term goals, not the quick wins. We want the long term. We want this to last. We want these things to be put in place. We want them to be foundational. The other piece and one other thing that I will leave you with this Saturn and Mars opposition, and I love that the Magician has literally just been hanging out over here because I line this with Saturn up in the front, but this Magician looking over here with all the goodness that we're doing right here, this Magician, look, you don't want Uranus and Jupiter to come up in here and not have your Magician right, not have your warrior on, not tapping into that quality Mars warrior we talked about months ago in one of our first Twitchy Tuesdays. Spent a whole Twitchy Tuesday talking about Mars as the warrior. You can go and check that out on YouTube. You don't want the Magician to be running wild when Uranus and Jupiter start getting into this conversation, because they are coming. Uranus and Jupiter are coming into the conversation with Mars. You don't want Jupiter to make whatever, if this Magician is running wild and it's out of control and the thing you're not making those systematic adjustments, you don't want Jupiter to come in and just expound upon that. You don't want Uranus to come in and fully fucking overhaul all of the shit that you're doing. Because Uranus will. Uranus ain't got no problem. Like, Saturn will be that like judge and taskmaster at your side. Uranus is like, oh no, boom, done. Like full tower moment right away. So it is a really important like time right now to really listen to this conversation and really determine, there could have been a lot with the moon, with the nodes changing. There could be a lot of this information that's already coming up that you already know about, that you're already there. And now it's just, again, systematic adjustments or habits and routines during the slow burn of change, and just continue. It's the check-in. Go for the long term. Go for the long haul. Fire sign retrogrades. That's our next topic. Then we head right into Venus retrograde and the sun in Leo. Fire sign retrogrades. Any fellow fire signs out there? If you are, that's going to be your Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. Put it in the chat or put it in the comments after if you are watching on replay. Love me some fire signs. I am just a fire individual. Always have been, always align with the sun. There's just something so amazing about fire and its energy and what it brings forth. So let's talk about it when it comes to fire sign retrogrades and why this is an important part of the conversation this week. So Chiron will be headed retrograde. We talked about that in Aries. We got some change, Wheel of Fortune. We got some things moving here. And then we got the 9 of Pentacles back. So Chiron is going to head retrograde in Aries on 7/23. This ain't new. Chiron spends most of the year in retrograde. This ain't a new thing. This is something that we've already been working through, already been there. Chiron's been in Aries for a hot minute. And then we have Venus, the 22nd, the day before. Venus is going to enter in, and I love that this just reminds me of Venus so much. Venus is going to enter into a retrograde in Leo, which I got a lot to go over with that. And that's going to happen on 7/22. So when we have these fire sign retrogrades, and these two together, there's something very much about looking at this wheel and figuring out what do I need to do as this wheel changes, as the fire clicks into place, as, you know, this 9 of Pentacles is no longer just like, how am I going to temper the fire if all of a sudden out in these bushes over here and those look like grapes, my vineyard poof goes up in flames, right? Wildfire happens, whatever that looks like. How do you temper the fire? What are techniques, going back to the conversation with Mars and Saturn? What are the habits and routines that you have in place to temper fire, to focus your fire on the things that you need to do to make that wheel turn in your favor, to make this 9 become a 10? How do you focus that? And Aries and Leo, Sagittarius as well, they are totally different fires. Totally different fires. And if you haven't played with that fire energy yet, that is something to really hone in on. Aries fire, and this is just my interpretation of it, how it works with me. Aries fire is the spark. It's the initiation of things. It is truly the uncontrolled wildfire. It's that moment that lightning touches the ground and things just explode into flames. It's the Tower card, right? It's that Tower card where the lightning comes in, it strikes the top of the cap and flames erupt and off it goes. That is Aries fire. It's, kind of quick, it's unforgiving, and it spreads. With Leo, Leo's fire is more of that like sustained heat. It's the fire. It's like, it reminds me most of bonfires where it's somewhat controlled because it's a fixed sign. It's somewhat controlled, although you never know with a bonfire, like how high the flames are going to get. It still has some measure of control to it. There's still some, I can put this out if I need to. With Leo, it's the fire that burns because it just wants to be seen. It just wants, like, it's those beautiful fires that you see at like gorgeous restaurants or like, outdoor seating areas. It's like that kind of fire where it's warm, it's comforting, it's got that heat to it, it's got the things that you need. And then the Sagittarian fire, which we don't have anything in Sagittarius yet. Not right now. It's coming. Don't worry. But Sagittarius fire is the fire of the hearth. It's the comfort of the fire in the home during the cold nights of winter. It's the spark of life that fire creates. So these are the different that's my interpretation of the fires. Those are the different ways. So we're dealing with this initiatory fire and that kind of controlled-ish, but still can be very big, very in your face, very heat oriented. And you have to tap into them. You have to slow them down. You have to temper them. You have to focus on them in a little bit of a different way. Ooh, hello. 2 cards came out. Knight of Cups, and now here's the 10 of Cups. So it's working with them in a different way. And how do you use, I love that the water is coming out here. How do you use the water? How do you use the water in your own natal chart? These are some questions as we go through these retrogrades that you can be asking yourself, you can be journaling on, contemplating on. How do you use the water that is already in your cups, that is already here for you, and what you have access to and what's going on in regular transits, right? We've got Saturn and Pisces. We've got plenty of planets in water. Water is the easy thing to come by. But how do you use that to create action forward, to create things that you're working on your campaign on, and to create that total fulfillment, that actual completion of everything, completely finalizing it out. So those are the fire sign retrogrades. We get to talk more about Leo now because that's where we're headed. We're headed to Venus retrograde, and the sun in Leo. And that's where our oracle decks are going to come in today. We have, I said, the Queen of the Moon oracle, the Divine Feminine oracle. Venus is very present here. And both of those can be found in the description box if you are interested. That's where we're going to pull these cards at, is we're going to pull those for guidance for Leo season. And Venus retrograde in Leo. So I'm going to kind of combine a little bit the Sun in Leo and Venus retrograde, because Leo in general, the aspects of Leo, we already need to be looking at and want to level set on because of Venus's retrograde here. So the Sun in Leo and Venus retrograde, we're going to start there with Venus. Venus's retrograde has started, her pre-shadow started on 6/19 when she hit the 12 degrees of Leo. You can't make it up. Like you cannot make the numerology, the things, like the universe is never so lazy to give us consequences. So we've got 12/12. She begins her retrograde 7/22 at 28 degrees 36 minutes. She will station direct on 12/12 on 9/3, which, by the way, is another 12. Again, can't make this up. And then out of shadow, she'll come out of shadow, which means she will cross over where she stationed retrograde at the 28 degree 36 mark on October 7th. We have a very long Venus in Leo transit. That was already building up. We talked about that at the beginning of the year. We've been talking about this leading up to this moment, and this moment is now here this week where she is going to be headed retrograde. And this is where, if you've never looked into Venus's retrograde around the sun, I highly just Google it. Go to the oracle, Google it out. It's beautiful. It's, a beautiful flower. It's a beautiful, her whole process is very numerologically based. Like there's 40 days and 40 nights. She goes from the morning star to the evening star during this retrograde in particular. There's a lot of synchronicities within Venus retrogrades that once you kind of begin digging into that a little bit and tapping into that, there's even kind of more that unveils itself with Venus and her retrograde cycle, her cycles. So again, she does go from morning star to evening star, and that will be prominent when we get to talk about her retrograde as it stands. So Leo Pride. We've got the Leo Pride. We have the Four of Swords that showed up, the World that showed up, Lion in the corner on the World. It is time, y'all. It is time. It's time to get into that Leo season. So if you are a Leo, happy season to you. Happy solar return to you. Welcome. You're more than welcome here. Love me some Leos. Fire fixed masculine. That's what Leo is all about. So here's Venus, very feminine, in a fire fixed masculine sign. And boy, can Leos be fixed. Four of Swords out. Boy, can Leos be fixed. So what are some really great things with Leo, some keywords, phrases, etc., that we can really get in on, then translate that to the Venusian areas of our life and how this Venus retrograde goes and does this during Leo season. So we've got Leo is very loud, expression, hi, hello. Great example of that. Very loud. Like it's light. It's not light like airy, but light as in beaming. The sun. It's ruled by the sun. It's just out there. It's fame. It's attention. It's self-knowledge and standing up, being leaderful, being in power, the lion, right? Being that pride. Having pride, and on the other side of that obviously is shame, self-love, authenticness, heart-centered. It has a lot to do with your heart chakra and being able to open and expand and bring that forward, your solar plexus, the seat of your power. How do you sit on that throne that is you? How do you exude that out in a very loving manner? That is all Leo. There's a lot of things. Again, we got some shame. All of those things have the opposite sides to them when they come out in lower expressions, right? Self-worth self-worth, shame, unawareness of how what you do affects others. There's just kind of that, it's my own fire and that's all I care about, burning others in the process because you're just all about you. There's toxicity to fame. There's, being too loud, being meek but loud, bark worse than the bite, that sort of thing. Those can all be that kind of lower vibration of that Leo energy. So how does this Leonine energy apply to the Venusian aspects of life? And what are those Venusian aspects? But that's really the question when Venus heads retrograde in any sign, is how does that energy of that sign apply to the planet that is in that sign and then doing retrograde, etc. So Venusian aspects of life. So with Venus, it's all about the money, honey. It's money, it's possessions. Two of Pentacles pops out. It's security, it's your values, it's your relationships literally to everything. Your relationship to your body, your relationship to your mind, your spirit, your soul, your relationship to other people. Yes, it is about love. Absolutely. It is your relationships at work. It's your relationships with your friends, your families, etc. Mostly it's your relationship with you. It's a lot about sharing. How do we balance things? How do we share? How do we relate to other people? How do we give and how do we receive? And how do we do that graciously with ease and grace? Shout out to Ripples in the Matrix with that one. And how do you get into the sweetness of life? Venusian aspects. All of those. And then some. So, when it comes to, hold on one second. There we go. When it comes to this Venus retrograde in Leo, and again, you do want to make sure that you are looking at your natal chart where this is happening in your natal chart, because what house that is could bring up some additional themes for you. But a lot of this is about taking responsibility for the Venusian areas of your life. The Three of Pentacles and this Knight of Cups is not leaving us today, y'all. Knight of Cups has got something to say to somebody out there. So it's a lot about the responsibility for the Venusian areas in your life in a very Leonine way, in a very Leo way. Remember when I talked about her going from a morning star to an evening star, meaning you'll see her in the evening versus the morning during this retrograde cycle? That in itself is significant. It's about change. It's about changing it up. It's about changing sides. It's about changing your perspective, changing things. If you've always done it this way, which can be a very Leo, very Venus rules Taurus, another fellow fixed sign. It can be a very Venus Leo thing. I have always done it this way. I have always put those pentacles right there on that Three of Pentacles. They go right there. And here's Venus retrograde in Leo, right? Let's call it this guy right here is like, bruh, they don't always have to go there. They can go anywhere you want. We could actually switch them up if you wanted to. Here's this Venus retrograde challenging rethinking, relooking, reinvigorating you to think about things differently. Change up those sides. Take responsibility for what is not working in the Venusian areas of your life and take responsibility proudly in the Leo way. Proudly. Maybe it's even vocal. Maybe it's time that you told somebody what you're taking responsibility for. It's a wonderful time to rebrand. Great time to rebrand. And not maybe necessarily completion of the rebranding where it like goes out public and everything, but taking those steps to figure out what you want to rebrand. And then once Venus goes direct and we kind of continue to move on, actually bringing that brand forward. Great time to think about all that. If you were thinking about a rebrand, good time to start thinking, execution later on. Okay. So, and I mean, hey, if you're called, execution now, by all means, do that. But these are things that we want to be thinking through as we are going through this Venus retrograde in Leo. There's a lot around. We talked about the Venusian areas, sweetness being one of them. So let's talk about sweetness. What does sweetness mean? Right? What is that when you hear me say the sweetness, the sweet things in life? What are the immediate images, words, internal dialogue that you have with yourself when that comes up? Sweetness can be in many, many different forms. The sweetness of texture on your skin, right? What types of textures do you like? Do we need to change that? Does wool no longer suit you the way that you want it to be suiting you? It's a lot about food, right? Sweetness, the sweet things. Where's your palate now? Do you have the same palate as you did before? Do you want to try new things? Maybe it's time. Like, look, I am not a custard fan. Never have been. Don't like anything related to custards. I have a hard time with Jello. All of the But this is a great time for me to check in with that and say, okay, are we still there? Okay, are you sure? Do you want to try? And then you can reconfirm yourself, right? Pleasure foods. Evaluate what foods bring you pleasure. And maybe ask the question, why? Why does that light me up inside? And if you're not doing things that light you up inside, doing sweet things for yourself, lighting you up inside, why? What is that purpose? My purpose right now, I'm on a 75 hard. I'm doing that. I love that I'm doing this through the start of Venus retrograde because it's not letting me, because another thing, Leo, indulgence, it is not letting me indulge in those sweet things. I have a bigger purpose. I have a bigger goal. I want to complete my 75 hard. So doing that has allowed me to before this retrograde goes, when Venus got into Leo, allowed me to evaluate what really I want and I need when it comes to things that are sweet. I used to always have to have chocolate. Like in my head, I had the conversation with myself. I need chocolate. You know, when you go without, when that's not part of that narrative anymore, it's amazing where I'm like, I don't even think about chocolate anymore. So that's how some of this can start working with you and coming up. Another thing with sweetness is, what are you tasting? Anything, again, with Leo here, with the heat here, could be drawn more to heated things than you normally would be. Fashion is another great place for Venus to show up. Leo is all about being big, bright, and bold. Big, bright, and bold. In fact, I have a candle here. It's a Leo candle that my boss got me. And hold on, I'm going to read it because it says, I do this thing called what I want. That's so accurate. That is Leo incarnate. I do this thing called what I want. And when it comes to things like sweetness, fashion, all of that stuff. Sorry, I'm just moving my stuff back. Um, Fashion trends, your hair, your clothes that you're wearing. I want to be big, bright, and fucking bold. And I'm not going to apologize for that. I want my hair to be big. Love huge hair. Love it. The mane. Get the mane going. Get it out there. Be as curly, be as big, be as crazy as you want it to be. Bright. There's a little bit of flowiness too. Just this is the Saturn and Pisces influence here. Um it can be Venus retrograde also during uh the Saturn and Pisces, but during this Venus retrograde you may like find you want to have like looser pants on, like think of like hammer pants or gigantic bell bottoms or like Buddha pants or anything like that. Just wanting to be more comfortable, being able to be a little more flowy with everything. And then, enhancements to the bodies can come up too, like thinking about, oh, maybe I do want a boob job. Maybe I do want Botox. Maybe I do want to go get a microdermabrasion. Maybe I do want to do that new thing that I saw on TikTok, right? Like all of these things can be up for conversation during this Venus retrograde. And, we can't talk about it without talking about relationships. We just cannot talk about Venus without talking about relationships because, yes, relationships are on the table. And I think the bigger question here is not relationships with others because this is a retrograde. Hold on, we've got extra card. Oh, whoa, look at all those cards that wanted to come out. Okay. So we have the, 5 of Pentacles, the Star, the 9 of Cups, the 8 of Pentacles, and the Queen of Cups. So this 2 of Pentacles was already out. Let's get into these ones as we're talking about relationships. So this is not about let me rephrase that. This more than likely is during this retrograde is going to be about your self relationship. Venus is turning, right? Venus is going from this shine outward where she is the morning star. She is welcoming, she is open, she's embracing everyone, welcoming them to the new day, to an evening star. Going inside, going internal, getting more of that femininity inside, going into those dark spaces, going into self. Do you like what you see? 5 of Pentacles. The Star. As you have 1 foot on Earth, 1 foot in the cosmos, with Venus, working with her during this time, do you like what you see and what needs to be poured out and what needs to be collected? What needs to be left where you are and what can come with you going forward? How do you think about yourself and others, right? This 9 of Cups. Are you happy? Are you supportive? How do you talk about yourself? How do you talk about yourself to others? Does some of that 8 of Pentacles need to be reworked? What are the stories that you choose to share about yourself with others? And do you need to rethink that? Do you need to, Queen of Cups, do you need to sit on this throne looking at this cup and rethink your strategy? I went through a whole year of retelling my stories to myself. I don't like this. Why don't I like this? Questioning the things that I say to myself, like the custard thing. Do I like custard? Is that still in alignment with me? I spent years not eating meat, years and years not eating meat, not understanding that it was a program I was holding on to from when I was a teenager that had no business being in my 30s. That is the stuff. What's the truth about yourself? Were you taught to love? Were you taught what this Nine of Cups is? Were you taught what love was? I know I wasn't. Not in the way that I want to show up for love for myself, love for others, love for my community, love for my people, etc. Love in my personal relationship with my husband. I wasn't taught that. I had to go through experiences to learn all of that. And it's, what's your affirmation right now? And how does that resonate? Like right now, 75 hard, my affirmation is firm, not fluffy. We want firm, not fluffy. It's a great, how are you, again, what are these conversations that you're having with yourself? Are you being real? I was fluffy, real statement. Now I want to be firm, not fluffy. It's having that reality check. It's having that moment to go in and really look and check in. Do we like who we spend time with? Do we like who's around us? This is now our relationship to others, which this could very well be present. Both of these can be present at the same time. Do we like who we spend time with? There's a lot with Venus retrograde, morning star to evening star, public, private, seen, not seen. What do you need in those accesses? How do you balance that? What do you need out of that? Molly McCord said this really wonderful quote that I loved during her I forget which overview it was, but it was a really beautiful quote that I thought really fully, provided the exclamation point onto this conversation when it comes to relationships, which is, and quote, you do not have to give power away, be loved. Cherry on top. A couple other things I'll just warn about is do not be surprised if you see scandals. Do not be surprised if all of a sudden social media gets crazy. You start hearing like sex scandals coming out. You start seeing things like things could just get a little raunchy. It's the best way to say it. We could get a little raunchy up in here during a Venus retrograde. Okay, so I'm going to pull one card each for this Venus retrograde to talk through just guidance. This is going to be the guidance for Venus retrograde. And then we can do one for the Sun in Leo as well. After that, we'll talk through the Sabian symbol for Venus retrograde because it might just kind of solidify some of this conversation that we've been having. And that will be it. Okay. Let me get this over here. Guys, 75 hard, having to drink a gallon of water. I am behind today. Okay. Going with the first deck, which is going to be the Divine Feminine deck. So, Ancestor Spirit, what is the guidance for this Venus retrograde in Leo for the collective? Oh, thank you very much. Then, here we go. Ancestor Spirit, what is the guidance? Thank you. Did you all see that? Mm-hmm. They were ready with that. Okay. So this is for Venus retrograde in Leo. We have Maching Labdron, the diamond-hearted Dakini. I see the light in my own darkness. I face my ego beliefs to feel free. And we have Extremes, the hot moon. Well, that's fucking steamy. Like, that's super steamy for a Venus retrograde in Leo. All right, let's get to the book and see what this all means. Machine. I hope I am saying that correctly. This deck is 125. is very, if you've never worked with it and you're looking for a powerful, feminine energy deck, great deck to go with. Okay, let's see who she is. Maching Labdron takes the dark and transmute it into only more light. Tibetan Buddhist, believe that Yishi Sanghail was reborn as Maching Labardon and that both were incarnations of the female Buddha. Maching's mother had an auspicious dream right before giving birth. 7 dakinis poured water over her body, blessing her, purifying her, and prophetically relating that this little baby girl would also be a dakini. As a young woman, Maching made a living by reading the Prajnaparamita Sutra, or the Heart Sutra, which is the most beloved wisdom text in Mahayana Buddhism. People consider it a great blessing to have it read in their homes. After leading a monastic order, Maching married and lived what is referred to as, quote unquote, the red and white essence of mystical union. She practiced tantric union with her husband while raising a family together. Her son became one of her greatest successors. Maching developed the tantric Buddhist practice of Chod. These teachings were the first Buddhist teaching to emerge in Tibet. Chod is referred to as the cutting off ritual. A demon, according to Maching, is anything that obstructs the achievement of freedom. Demons then are ego beliefs, not scary, hairy beast, but inner barriers that keep us from realizing the nature of reality. Venus retrograde, your inner barriers that keep us from realizing the nature of reality. The Chod practitioner visualizes their demon and then mentally cuts off parts of their own body as an offering to the demon. Maching holds a traditional Tibetan Chod drum, a damaru, in one hand and a bell, ganta, in the other. Maching, like Yishi Sangyal, lived until she was 99, and then according to Tibetan Buddhists, she reincarnated as Lama Salutram Aloni, an American Buddhist teacher. Aloni explains in her book, Feeding Your Demons, that Chod is, quote unquote, a method for bringing our shadow into consciousness and assessing the treasures it's hold rather than repressing it. The powerful, unbroken lineage of female transmission reveals to us that enlightenment is about making the darkness conscious. Venus retrograde in Leo. So when your soul selects her card, from Maching's perspective as an enlightened female, she knew that the difference between a god and a demon had to do with our reaction to them. Those who cause us pain, she explained, also teach us patience, whereas those who bring gifts can distract us from our spiritual paths. Relationships. No one and no single situation has the power to derail us. That is, unless we let it. The power rests within us. The spiritual path for Maching was to become intimate with her inner demons, these thoughts or beliefs that kept her from experiencing joy, bliss, and pure love. The darkness within isn't actually dark. It often feels threatening because some aspect of our intuition knows that when we face it, we will reclaim that lost part of our soul. We will heal. We will become more whole. And that, ironically, can be terrifying. We get so used to functioning with only one wing. We wonder, how can I fly now with two? I'll go too far, too high. Who will I become now that I'm free? And who will I lose in the evolution of my soul? Powerful Venus retrograde messages. Maching is here to support us in seeing what's ready to become conscious. She's here with her diamond heart to hold us as we feed one of our demons, not with fear, but with the knowledge that bringing it to life and into light will help set us free. So here is a meditation from the soul voice. Is there an ego belief that I am ready to see and release within me? Could be a question that you can journal through Venus retrograde or in the onset of. And an intention. I see the light in my own darkness. I face my ego beliefs to feel free. Beautiful message. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, so then we'll head over to this extremes that is super hot over here. So hot moon. See what it says. All right, extremes. Learn how to handle crises with calm and resilience. Seeking balance is superior to seeking extremes. There are better ways to handle conflict than rage and outrage. There may be some who seeks to disrupt your business or life in some way, but this too shall pass. Most of us have experienced extremes of weather, boiling hot days, or the freezing of snow and ice. I know that's very present for some of us, especially those in the West. You certainly know you are alive because the sensation can be overwhelming or stressful to the body. The hot moon appeared in the hottest time of the year, where the days are the longest and the rains less frequent. Similarly, we can experience extremes in life: deaths, jobs, relationship breakdowns, true fears, big conflicts, booms, and busts. And yet, this is our life. Our situation can change quickly for better or for worse. The hot moon challenges us to build our resilience and reserves of wisdom and calm for those times where things are at their extreme. Taking this Venus retrograde to think through all those things for our path ahead. It reminds us that developing grace under pressure is worth its weight in gold, and even these extremes in time will pass. The quote here: I handle extremes mantra. I handle extremes with grace, yet I seek balance in all things. And this actually aligns with the sunstone as well, if you are into crystals or work with crystals. Woo! That was a powerful retrograde message, definitely aligned with all the things that we're talking about. I do feel that this also aligns with that sun in Leo too, what we're going to be experiencing through Leo season. So taking those both as that kind of leonine energy that we need to be bringing forward through Venus's retrograde and through this sun's transit. So we will end off with our Sabian symbols. And I'm going to put these over here so we can still see them and hone in. So as a reminder, this book is in the description box as well. Venus will station retrograde 28 degrees, 36 minutes. So that is Leo 29 for the Sabian symbol. And this is what it says: a mermaid. This is a symbol of humanity's insatiable appetite for experience on the side of psychological self-assurance and of the nascent eagerness of the soul for a private and personal participation in every possible facet of self-fulfillment. Hello, Leo. There is an ineradicable purity of man's makeup at core, and in consequence, an ultimate repudiation of all the compromises which seem to be demanded in everyday relationships. The individual forever seeks and responds to the creative needs of life itself. The key word is in importunity. Importunity. When positive, the degree is a completeness of quickening to inner instincts of the being and a real willingness to trust them. And when negative, a lack of discrimination and an awkward insensitivity. All right. Then she will station direct at 1212, which is where she started her pre-retrograde phase. And that is Leo 13, which is an old sea captain rocking. This is a symbol of man's great love for reliving his experiences in memory. It's going to go back there, reliving her experiences in memory, and of his gift for achieving a mastery in advance of whatever new situations he may face by bringing all the ramifying relationships to a focus in a personal and competent grasp of their more pertinent potentialities. He fights the battles of the world in his imagination over and over again. He knows that events repeat themselves and so may be brought in leash. The key word is retrospect. When positive, the degree in each person's unlimited capacity for calling up afresh the powers he has gained in his struggle towards self fulfillment. And when negative, insensibility to present reality in a full surrender of the past. That message, loud and clear to me, just said, pay attention. What this Venus retrograde is doing, what it's been doing the last time it was in Leo, the last time it retrograded, etc. It's that sea captain. It's that retrospective. It's the ability to look, to see, to own, to continue to move forward, to take the lessons learned and go ahead. Woo! All right. Well, that is going to be it for our Twitchy Tuesdays. I will clear space real quick before getting out of here. So here's what we got. We've got 1,000 subs and 100 followers on Twitch. That is our Q3 goal. The 1,000 subs are on YouTube. And we didn't accomplish that goal in Q2, and that's okay. We build. We got closer. 268. We're actually over 270 now. I did check right before this. We are over 270 now, which is huge. And that is all thanks to you. So make sure that you head over to YouTube right now. If this is the first time you're seeing, we had a follower today. So thank you so much for that. Get to my channel, Twitch or YouTube. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following. If you are on YouTube, you can head right to the live tab. You'll see all the July Twitchy Tuesdays. I will be scheduling August in the next week or two. You can smash the notify me button and you're in. You are in. Don't forget, we have the special Twitchy Tuesday this weekend. It's going to be Sunday, 1 p.m. Central. We're going to be celebrating Lunasa or Lammas, the first harvest. So our next spoke on the wheel of the year. Thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you next time. Bye.